Judges Corner is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com and gatheringmagic.com. Support our show by visiting both websites. Now it's time for Judges Corner with David Green.
Hi, and welcome back to Judges Corner. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Boros Reckoner. The reason why we're covering Boros Reckoner today is because there's a lot of really interesting questions regarding the card at competitive and casual play. The card's a little confusing, not exactly the quickest card to understand, so I figured we'd go over it and see exactly what we're dealing with. So, Boros Reckoner is a 3 mana cost hybrid card that can be paid with either red or white mana to cast it in any combination. It has an ability that can give it first strike, or you can let its natural ability occur, which lets any damage dealt to it be dished right back out to a creature or player. That can be pretty useful when comboed with cards like Blasphemous Act, or when it's just dealt damage, allowing it to attack, usually unblocked, or allow it to be a really good wall. Of course, there are ways of dealing with Boros Reckoner, such as cards that destroy creatures, or cards that give creatures -X, -X. You can also kill it with effects that deal damage to it, or just block it outright, but then you're going to have to deal with its effect that lets it deal out damage to other things. So, with that, let's take a look at some basic examples and go from there. We're being attacked by 3 creatures and we block one of them with a Boros Reckoner. When damage is dealt to us and the Reckoner, we can then shoot one of the attacking creatures, or the creature we blocked if it's still alive, or even the player for the mana damage that was dealt to the Boros Reckoner. So, same scenario as before, but this time we give the Boros Reckoner first strike, and the creature we block is going to be destroyed in the first damage step. When this happens, our Boros Reckoner won't get to shoot anything because it was never dealt damage. So let's say in this last example, I'm at 3 life, you're at 3 life, you attack with 2 3/3 creatures, I block one of them with Boros Reckoner. Who wins? Is the game a draw? Do one of us win and do one of us lose? So what happens here is the Boros Reckoner will be dealt 3 damage and I'll be dealt 3 damage at the same time. And because of that, Boros Reckoner's trigger will trigger, but it won't go on the stack just yet. Then state-based actions are checked and I die. But it doesn't actually go on the stack until after I'm already long and dead and the game is over. So now you've seen a lot of the simple examples that work with Boros Reckoner. So let's shift gears and go over and look at some of the more specific card examples that interact with it, such as a way to gain virtually infinite life. So in this example, we have a Boros Reckoner, and let's say it has lifelink via a Near Heath Pilgrim, and then we give it indestructibility via maybe a Boros Charm. When it's dealt damage then, it can constantly target itself with its own effect and loop a string of damage back and forth to itself. It'll never die because it's indestructible, and because it has lifelink, every time it deals damage to itself, you'll gain that much life. So, we can gain virtually infinite life. Although, we have to set that number to a very specific number because we can't literally gain infinite life in the game of Magic. We have to determine a certain number that we're going to gain, so you can gain 100, a million, or 10 to the 57th power in life. So another example could be if I attack with a 10/10 Trampler and you block with Boros Reckoner. How much damage can you shoot back with the Reckoner? Well, that depends on how much damage I'm trampling for. If I deal 3 damage to the Reckoner and then trample over for 7 to you, then you can shoot back for 3. If I deal more than lethal for whatever reason, then you can shoot back for more. But odds are I'm going to be shooting the Boros Reckoner for 3 and you'll be able to fire that back at me for 3 damage. So let's take a look at another example that's pretty common to standard right now in competitive play. So in our final example, let's say we have a, you guessed it, Boros Reckoner, and our opponent decides to block an attacking Reckoner with a Geralf's Messenger. When this happens, we don't give our Reckoner first strike, it'll take 3 damage, our Messenger will take 3 damage, and they both should die. The question then becomes, can I deal the damage dealt to the Reckoner to the new Messenger when it comes back with Undying? Do I have to deal with something else? And why? To answer this question, let's take a look at how this effect resolves. We have a Boros Reckoner attacking, it gets blocked, it's dealt 3 damage, and its effect triggers. Its effect doesn't go on the stack just yet, and then the Messenger dies when state-based actions are checked. Then the Messenger's trigger triggers and doesn't go on the stack just yet. Now we have 2 triggered effects waiting to go on the stack, and then they'll go on the stack in active player, non-active player order. But that really doesn't matter what order they're put on the stack in, because when they're put on the stack, our Reckoner has to have a target. And the new Messenger isn't back yet, so it can't be selected as a target, even though the Messenger is going to come back here before the Reckoner's ability resolves. So, no, we can't kill the new Messenger with our old Boros Reckoner's effect. So that should answer a lot of questions you have about Boros Reckoner. If I forgot to answer any questions that you may have, or you feel that I should have covered something else, feel free to leave a comment below, or email us at judgescorner@gatheringmagic.com. and I'm happy to address all of your questions there or in the comments below about this episode, previous episodes, or any Magic Rules questions in general. And speaking of questions, Lino had asked us if he has a card from an older set, but it's currently legal in the current format or the current sets, can he use that card? And the answer is yes. If you have a card that was printed in, say, Magic Core Set 2010, and it was then later reprinted in the current core set that's legal for Standard right now, you can use the older copy of the card, even though it's not the new copy. That's because all previous copies are legal as long as there's a current copy that's been printed in the current core set, or the current set of Standard. So our next question is brought to us by Brandon. So Brandon wanted to know if his opponent had a Tristani on the battlefield, and Brandon went and played an Illness in the ranks to give all of his opponent's token creatures -1/-1. If his opponent played something like Call of the Conclave, would that gain him 3 life or 2 life? So the answer is 2, and that's because the creature is entering as a 2/2 when it comes into play. And so when it comes into play, Tristani's only going to gain him 2 life, not 3. So that concludes our episode. Thanks for watching, and until next time, make sure you've been red your whites. Get it? Because red your rights. That was terrible. Just have fun.